is the Pegasus Podcast, presented by Night Sports Now. UCF news, views, and a few hot takes. Now, here are your hosts, Bailey Go Knights Adams and Christian Charge On Simmons.
Welcome into episode 169. Be sure you're following us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at @ByCASimmons, and at Night Sports Now. Well, that didn't go as we anticipated it would. Thought UCF might lose that game by about 45 to 74 points. They lost by 2. Came down to a 2-point conversion miss, which we can talk about. But on the whole, where do you want to start? I think I told you before the podcast, do you want to start with that? But I immediately led into talking about how pretty much good everything else was.
I'm surprised by that because we've been texting throughout the game, which we don't often do, and you've just seemed really angry about everything all day. So I'm surprised that you seem kind of chipper right now. I was worried that I was going to have to prevent you from calling for people to be fired. No. I was not even really feeling like that during the game. I think it was the thing was on the grand scope of everything. I'm pretty satisfied right now with how they played. I thought it was going to go a lot worse. When you break it down to the game itself, I'm they could have won that game, and that's where it was an in the moment frustration. But it was because I felt like they were so close. Yeah, just a couple times they could have extended the lead from more than 3 points, more than 6 points, and then the final time they didn't was when it went the other way. But no, that was the frustration because the offense basically had 3 straight drives where it was just get some points on this drive and build a cushion. They just never really could, and it's but it's hard for me to get super angry about that because I'm I was expecting them to get destroyed in this game. We all were. Yeah. And anyone who says they weren't was just crazy. This should not have been a close game. And it wasn't even a close game where it was well, Oklahoma just keeps shooting themselves in the foot. There was some of that. They missed a couple of field goals, but UCF, especially on defense, just played a really good game, which is the last thing I was expecting after last week. And they went on the road to the number 6 team in the country, a team that's been destroying everyone they play. This isn't just a team that's sort of gotten to 6-0. They beat Iowa State 50-20 in their first Big 12 game. They beat Texas. They beat Arkansas State 77-0 at one point this season. This was I'm shocked that this was a 2-point game and without UCF looking fluky, but actually just playing a good game.
Yeah, no, I think because that was the thing is those 3 drives where they didn't extend the lead, I think came after 5 straight drives of them scoring. And even early on in the game, it felt like they weren't going to do anything. I think the first quarter, they had 15 yards and they couldn't move the ball. And I was okay, this is going to be a long afternoon. But even during that period, the defense looked better than I expected. Oklahoma missed 2 field goals. And I was UCF's still in this game. I don't know for how much longer they will be. And they were in it for a long time. And even when they looked probably out of it, 31-23, they had a 45-yard play from JRP to Randy Pittman. And then they scored a touchdown on 4th and 10.
There was never a point where they weren't in it. It was a full-on close game, start to finish. And then the added detail on top of all of this is that it leaks out early this morning that UCF is dealing with some sort of virus. And a bunch of the team is sick. And they say on the broadcast that 13 different players, including John Rice Plumlee, who's still trying to get back from his knee issue, had to get IVs before the game.
I think he had to get 2, right?
2 IVs for this game. And for UCF to literally have a flu game where they're all freaking sick. I mean, when I saw that this morning, we were talking about it, I was it's going to be so much worse than I even imagined. Our guys not going to be able to play. And let me be clear, you could see the impact of that in the game. Guys just looked gassed, and UCF used all 3 of their timeouts in the first half. And I think a lot of that was them realizing guys needed breaks. But to fight through that, on top of you're also just playing one of the most talented teams in the country, a team that thinks they can go win a national championship and has a really good quarterback who the program has some familiarity with, was just, I'm having a hard time being mad about this at all. And honestly, when the game ended, I was kind of feeling obviously I always feel bad when UCF loses, but I was man, I really feel like they can build on something here. And that was a really good game. And I'm just happy about that. I'm pretty disappointed with UCF fans in general. I get it's not great when your team loses, but no, this is different to me. We make fun of the fan bases before, but I think some of you were just trash is basically what I'm going to say at this point. I understand that, okay, the team didn't win, you want them to win, but I was shocked by how negative some of you were being immediately. And not only oh man, I wish they won, but just screw these players. RJ Harvey's fighting with fans on Twitter right now. That's how.
Oh, is he really?
I can't fathom playing a game like that against the number 6 team in the country, and you get back to the locker room and you get on your phone and fans are telling you suck. So some of you guys are just ridiculous. And I know some of you are listeners, I'm sure, just mathematically, and I wish you guys could not, because that really is just, imagine being a player playing that game and you get on Twitter and fans are telling you suck. I don't know what's wrong with some of you. I don't know what some of you want. It's how many times on this podcast have we talked about over the last few weeks how this is not going the way it should? UCF's 0-4 in Big 12 play, and that's bad. We've all agreed that's bad. No one is saying that that's good or that This is fine. The Baylor loss was terrible. We've talked about that. We've talked about Gus Malzahn. We've talked about all of it. What the hell do you want from this team? If they go on the road while they're all sick and hooked up to IV bags and they almost beat Oklahoma, they come a 2-point conversion away from going to overtime, and your reaction is, well, they definitely still need to fire everyone. All these players suck, blah, blah, blah. It's like, some people just suck. Like, I don't know what to say to you other than just like, what is wrong with you? And if you are those people, maybe it was the heat of the moment. Maybe you'll calm down the coming hours. But frankly, like, get off Twitter, shut up, and just like take a moment to think about how ridiculous you're being and why you're even a fan of this team. I'm so sick of some of these fans. And it's all the fans. I'm not going to go there. Yeah, I will go there. It's all the fans who came in after 2017. You guys are wrecking the fan base. And I'm not one of those people. And I've always said before that, you know, like how long you've been a UCF fan doesn't mean anything. I know there's some people kind of like to gatekeep UCF fandom and say, oh, well, I was here when they went 0-12, so that makes me better. Or I was here when they were in Conference USA. It's like, that doesn't make you better. But for those of you who just like hopped on the train when they were good and now can't handle any kind of loss, you're pathetic and you need to stop. Like, I can't get over how disheartening that must be for the team, for you guys just be crying on Twitter because your team almost beat the number 6 team in the country when they've been playing badly and had a bad season and put it all on the line. You're just screaming at them because you're mad. What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? I just don't get it.
I didn't think we'd have a tweet of the week segment like 4 minutes into the post-game podcast.
I've just been seething since the game ended because it was just, I guess I was just in a totally different headspace than the rest of the fan base, but I just could not believe how many fans are just being just like this on Twitter and tweeting at players and stuff. I don't understand it. I really don't understand it.
It's bizarre, but I would love to leave that where we are now and just kind of talk about the game. And I think what the big takeaway for me is like they had a pulse, which like they had more than that. Like they almost beat Oklahoma on the road. But I think it was just the fact that from what I expected was they blew that 28-point lead against Baylor. They got blown out by Kansas. Then I was expecting them to lose this one by a bunch of 40 points, whatever it was, whatever my score prediction was. And then they didn't. And like I was just kind of thinking after if they get blown out in this game, I was thinking, all right, the rest of the season, it's like, what do we really see from them? And now you come back out and like, I don't know what they made some tweaks to the defense. I don't know what they did entirely, but the defense looked better than it has all year. The offense was like, for the most part, maybe they scored 29 points on a good Oklahoma defense. And yeah, I mean, that largely like everything that had gone wrong. I think a lot of the things that had gone wrong were fixed. I think there was still some things in some moments where you're like, do better, but I feel so much better about the rest of the year. Like I was thinking after last week or 2 weeks ago, coming into this game, coming off of a blowout loss to Oklahoma, like there's no way they come back home and beat West Virginia. Now I'm like, I think they play the way they did today or similar to the way they did today. They're gonna put up another good game, and I think they might win that game. Like I feel better about getting 3 more wins the rest of the year and getting to a bowl game, which all along was what I wanted.
Yeah, but Bailey, they didn't win, so they need to fire everybody. That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line, right? I mean, like they didn't win the game, so fire everyone. I'm so sick of you guys. I just can't. I'm not gonna be able to get over this. I just can't believe how ridiculous. Because I'm like looking at Twitter while we're doing this, and I'm just seeing more of it. Like I
don't. Like
I know I'm pissed right now, but I'm just like I don't understand it. I really don't. That game could have happened, and you're like fire everyone. I'm so over it. But
it's like anyway, they were happy. It's like they were happy. Like if they would have won, like what
it was like. But seriously, I literally saw someone tweet that they're gonna go 3-9. Based off of this game. I'm just done with some of this fan base. It's ridiculous. But anyway, fine. I'll let it go. I'll try to move on and breathe through it and we'll talk about the actual game. But God, you guys are just ridiculous. But anyway, yeah, there was, when you look at the Big 12 as a whole now, or their first 4 games into it, like they're 0-4 and that's bad. We all acknowledge that's bad. And it's always going to go back to that Baylor game and how they're up 35-7. But after that Kansas game 2 weeks ago, I was like, and we talked about it a million times, like the season just felt over. It was just we talked a lot about concerns about the locker room and the culture and whether guys were going to be able to mentally get through this. And it just felt like they were done. And to take what happened against Kansas and come back 2 weeks later and go on the road and almost beat Government with 2 points of beating the number 6 team in the country is just, I feel completely different about the rest of the season. That doesn't mean they're not going to go out and lose to West Virginia because that's still a tough game, but there were just a lot of things to like. JRP is back and it is real. I'm having a hard time squaring in my brain. That player we saw today and the guy we saw against Boise State is the same player who was like a roller coaster of chaos last season because he was just so measured today. There weren't highs and lows. He was just making good decisions, throwing the ball well. He's definitely limited mobility-wise. You can tell on some of those runs, and I think he had negative rushing yards. And I don't think it's so much he's not healthy. It's just that's a clunky brace he has. But the offense looked a lot calmer with him than it has with Timmy over the last few weeks. And I think at some point we need to have the conversation that, A, Plumlee's been healthy through 3 games, and that's been the blowout win over Kent State, the win against Boise on the road, and now a 2-point loss to Oklahoma. And maybe him being back can just be a lot of the difference maker. And also just the fact that we don't have to worry anymore about, oh, he's going to come in and tank this team. He's a good player. They just actually have a good quarterback now.
And I think really where you see probably the only limitations is like some of the ones where he has to move laterally and like roll out. So like he can't get enough on his throws and some of those. And there were some passes that fell short because of that. But no, I mean, overall, like when he had to run, he ran. And he was throwing the ball better. I mean, it is weird. Like his arm looks completely different than it has over the course of the last year and a half. And I think it's like he has finally taken a step forward, and it's just in time for like the season to wind down and his college career to wind down. But
I know.
I mean, yeah, it does give you hope the rest of the way because they're like, they need to get 3 more wins to get to a bowl. And it feels like there are like, with the way they played today, there are 3 more wins on the schedule. I think there are.
I agree.
And
Cincinnati lost to Baylor today, and it wasn't like how UCF lost to Baylor, where they just went to sleep and let them take over. Cincinnati's a very bad football team, and I think UCF's going to win that one.
And like you said, they could absolutely come back out next week and lose to West Virginia and play worse than they did today, because it's just such a weird week-to-week thing with not even the team. It's like the entire league is that way.
Yeah. We're going to have to figure out what this podcast is going to do long-term, because like just week-to-week previews are almost useless in the Big 12 because all of these teams are so similarly matched that it's just like weird stuff is just going to continuously happen. And I know that's always college football, but the Big 12 in particular is just a chaos league. Like we're never going to be able to tell you what's going to happen week to week.
I don't know how I'm going to survive. Like, I don't know how, like, this is year 1 of this. And I assume at some point that UCF's going to get to a level where they are competing for, at a higher level in the conference, and every game is going to mean that much more. Like right now, it's just like, oh man, I want UCF to win a conference game. Yeah. Like in the future, it's going to be like every game matters toward the race for the conference title. And I'm going to be a mess every Saturday.
But you look at UCF in the Big 12, and through 4 games, they're 0-4, and that does suck. Thank God Cincinnati lost, so UCF's not the only winless team in the conference. But at least it's become clear that Kansas was the weird one of those 4, right? Because they were competitive against Kansas State. They had the lead, but they couldn't hold on. Baylor, we all know what happened, but they were blowing them out and then fell apart. And then Oklahoma today, they had the lead late in the game, and it's just Oklahoma. I mean, Kansas is the only one where they just fell flat and looked terrible. And I honestly, the coaches had kind of hinted at it, and maybe it is right that it just felt like part of that. And I don't want to like take away that win from Kansas because Kansas played really well, but it did seem like some of that in hindsight was just UCF just could not shake off that Baylor loss. I mean, that was a really sort of catastrophic loss to go through, and it seemed like they were sleepwalking against Kansas. This felt like a reset. And I don't think this is another loss that's going to like be a death blow to the locker room. I think this is the type of loss that UCF can look at. Like, if I'm Gus right now, my message to the team in the locker room postgame is easy. It's, hey guys, guess what? You all are sick. You have a virus or the flu or whatever. We were hooking you all up to IVs before kickoff. You went out there on the road against the number 6 team in the country. You took it to them. We lost by 2 points. If you can lose by 2 points to this team, we can beat anyone left on the schedule. And you did this sick. And you did this sick and on IVs. So that it's gonna give confidence to the team. I really do. And I get there are no moral victories, and I'm not trying to say this is one. I'm just saying that it's hard to not feel better about the home stretch of the season. A, with how they played today. B, with the defense, which we've probably talked about more, looking better, and John Rice Plumlee being back and just still looking like a really solid quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like, this is the absolute best team they're going to play all year long. They're going to play some good teams. Like West Virginia, I think, is a pretty good team. Again, week to week with the Big 12, you never know. Like they're down 10-7 right now to Oklahoma State, who at one point in the season looked lifeless, and now Oklahoma State, I think, is good, but it's just a weird thing. But they play West Virginia, then they play Cincinnati. Like they're playing a stretch, and who's after Cincinnati? It's Oklahoma State, and then Texas Tech and Houston. Like you're playing teams that are not at the same level as Oklahoma. I'm not saying they're going to go out and play like they did today and every one of those games and win all of them. I don't think they're going to win out by any stretch, but you can feel confident that they're going to win any of those games. Because after Kansas, it was like they can't stop anything. Like they're going to give up 50 points the rest of the way, and they can't win games like that. The defense somehow, and whatever they did, like they came out and I would shout out to, I forget what it is. It UCF X's and O's on Twitter, who was saying yesterday like that the defense might match up with Oklahoma's offense oddly better than it did Kansas, because they do a lot of they do some different things. And there maybe was some of that, but I think it was also just some adjustments they made during the bye week, and they were able to. They played pretty well in coverage. They had what should have been 2 interceptions.
Yep.
They got to Gabriel, I think, for 4 or 5 sacks, 3 to 5. I don't remember the number exactly. They held up against the run for most of the game, maybe save for the last drive. And at that point, they're probably just exhausted.
I think they're all sick and the offense had a couple short drives.
The temperature ramps up as the game goes on. So
you're also playing against a bunch of previous 5-stars and 4-stars who are bigger and faster than you. Like, you need to give everything on every snap to be able to keep up with them. I think it just got to them at the end.
I feel way different about this defense than I did, I guess, 4 hours ago.
I feel a lot better about it.
4.5 hours ago.
And like I said, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm expert enough. I'm going to go back and rewatch the game, obviously, but like, to tell you what changed. I mean, the only like really clear things I noticed is that different players being featured more. We saw DeCorian Patterson was out there a ton. Sean Peterson was out there. So maybe those transfers are finally kind of finding their feet.
Ricky Barber was back healthy.
We barely talk about Malachi Lawrence, and he's been fantastic for this year. Ricky Barber was back healthy, and you felt that impact. Lee Hunter was playing great. It really, and it's what I said in the past podcast, having Ricky Barber back isn't just great for when he's out there. It's just taking John Walker from a starter to depth and just be giving you room to rotate back there, and and adding Sean Peterson and Malachi Lawrence helps that too. It's like that makes that whole unit so much stronger. The D-line played fantastic today, and the secondary had their best game in like 2 years, right? I mean, I couldn't believe how well they were covering these receivers.
Yeah, I think so. And then I think like offensively, they put up, like, I talked about the few drives there where they could have added to the lead, but overall, I mean, they scored in 5 straight drives. RJ Harvey had a great game. They were running the ball pretty well. Not an easy team to play against. And JRP had it was the big play to Javon Baker before halftime. And yeah, it was just, I don't know. You probably play that game however many times you want to play that game. It probably doesn't turn out this way every time, because I think Oklahoma will feel like they should have like played better than they did.
Oklahoma absolutely came out flat, like just kind of like whatever, and they woke up pretty quick. But those first couple drives, they did not seem like they were locked in. Yeah,
and I mean, the two missed field goals obviously make it like a different game too. But overall, it's just like you come out of that game, it's like I don't know how you still feel the same way that you did before the game.
No.
Like I feel so much better going forward. And if there's more positives, we can talk more positives, but at some point we need to talk about that 2-point play.
Yeah, we will. I don't have much more to say positive wise. I mean, like I said, it's just knowing that the defense isn't going to get steamrolled every game, which they still could. Like, you never know, but it's hard to imagine it now, given what just happened in this game. And I also have to say, because some fans are polling the whole, because I've been tweeting some of this obviously, and some fans, you guys are just great. Some of you have been tweeting stuff like, okay, well, Oklahoma was like our Super Bowl. Of course they played well. If that's the case, then like, why has Oklahoma been killing everyone else they're playing? That they're everyone's Super Bowl or Oklahoma. I think that's just a really defeatist attitude. What was it? Chalk that up to that.
Even the closest game.
Sorry.
Not the closest game. The closest game they played was Texas, but like the closest game before that was Cincinnati. I think they beat Cincinnati 20-6.
It was 20-6,
and a lot of that was Cincinnati just could not do anything offensively.
No, it was not even as close as that score. It was just Oklahoma just was kind of like whatever. It was also on the road, which I got to remember UCF actually went into that stadium and won this game. So I lost this game closely. So. Not that
UCF would have won either game, but I wish they would have gotten one of these teams, Oklahoma or Texas, at home this year. Like
every other new team does. BYU, Houston's hosting Texas right now, and the fact that UCF, if they lost by 2 on the road, if this game's in the bounce house, I think UCF wins it. I really do. I don't think that's a hot take, and that's frustrating that UCF is the only new team that was denied that opportunity. But it's just, and like I said, to me, if we're going to transition to negatives, let me just say first off, it still just all comes back to the freaking Baylor game for me, because if the Baylor game's just a win and everything else happens the same, it's totally different right now. They're 1-3 in Big 12 play, and you're saying, okay, well, they, the Kansas game was bad, but we almost beat Oklahoma. We're clearly cooking something here. Bowl games easily in reach, and instead it's like it's still going to be a fight for a bowl. So it's just all goes back to that freaking Baylor game.
That's the thing, because I'm thinking like if you have 4 wins already banked right now, it's like I think no chance they don't win 2 games down the stretch.
Cincy and Houston are both sitting there. Like there's your 2.
Now it gets scary because like you have to find another win, and you wouldn't have to do that. You finding another win. If they won that Baylor game was okay, they won 7 games their first year.
Yeah,
it's just everything is going to go back to that game probably forever.
I know that's just the way it is, but I don't know. I'm not going to keep going back to the fans who are mad, but it's like I just don't know what you guys want. I'm probably going to regret that rant. I don't even fully remember what I said. I was so mad when we started the podcast.
It was a lot.
Was it a lot?
It was a lot.
I'm not editing it out because we have a video version now and it takes me too long. I used to cut all kinds of stuff out of the podcast, and I don't really do it anymore because it's way harder to cut the video version than the audio version. And like I knew a moment was going to come where I was going to say something I really probably should cut. I'm not going to be able to, and apparently that moment's today. But
no, I don't think it was too bad. It was just a lot.
I just don't get it.
Right off the bat, too.
I just don't understand how you can watch that game and say, well, I've reaffirmed that everyone needs to go. I get it sucks when UCF loses. I'm bummed they lost the game, obviously. But when you're playing the number 6 team and you're sitting here how many times did I text you this week and say, I hate that I'm not even looking forward to this game. Like, I just want it to be over with. And it was one of my favorite games they played in the last 2 years. Like, it was so entertaining. Like, I don't get it. But we can talk about the bad stuff now. We can placate that group of the fan base that just wants to be angry and cry whenever UCF is undefeated. We can do that.
Yeah.
We'll throw you guys a bone.
I feel like, honestly, I'm trying to think what there really was. Like, already referenced the fact that, like, where the game turned was the fact that they didn't extend their lead, but I don't know what really I want to get into, like, too negative, other than the play call on the 2-point
That was
conversion.
really it for me, was that 2-point conversion play. And if you guys don't know what we're talking about or what it was UCF once again tried the double pass where they're going to have a player who's not a quarterback thrower. This time
it wasn't even RJ this time.
They've tried it with Kobe, RJ, and Townsend now. And it's just, we are more than 6 games. We're 7 games into the season, guys. It has never worked. It hasn't worked once this season, and not only to keep trying it, but to keep trying it on what I think I can probably say is the most critical play of the season. I don't understand it. I don't know what their obsession is with this. It seriously just makes me want to bash my head against the table. I don't know why they are so obsessed with making a play like that work.
My problem with it too is, so yes, it has not worked all year long, and even taking that pushing that off to the side, dissecting the play itself feels like a play that you can run. Well, I guess they have proved they can't run it anywhere, but you probably don't run it in that condensed area of the field, because there is one read, there's one guy that you can throw the ball to, and if he's covered, it's broken. But if, sure, if he's open, cool. But when you run that play somewhere else in the field, if the guy's open, that's 75 yards, like whatever. It's just there's more room to work with. You're condensed down there, and you need, what is it? They put the ball at the 3-yard line or the 2-yard line?
I'm not sure.
It's inside the 5-yard line for a 2-point conversion. So you go shotgun, you throw it laterally to your wide receiver, who's not a gadget player, according to Gus Malzahn. He got really upset about that. You throw it to him, and he has one read. He doesn't even get the throw off because they had it covered. But because first off, this is the thing. I watched that play, and the progression of me watching that play was, did they really just throw a screen on the 2-point conversion play? And then I realized he's scanning the field, not even trying to make anybody miss. I'm like, all right. I knew from that point, I was like, this is not going to go. This is not going to go the way we want it to. And I'd be fine. Like, all of the stuff we just talked about, it feels so much better if that play would have just been a normal play call and they wouldn't have gotten it. They lost 31-29, fine. But to come out with that, and that's what you hinged this game on, like, come on, man.
I found myself, and I stopped really quickly, almost getting mad at Townsend for 2 reasons, because the pass was supposed to be to Baker, and Baker's open for a fraction of a second. That's the most frustrating part of the play. And the second part is then Townsend kind of just shifts around and then goes down. And in my head, I'm like, you have to at least get, like, this is the game. Like, just throw it into the end zone. And I'm like, okay, I'm asking a wide receiver why he didn't have a better understanding of that situation. Like, I don't know why the hell they call it. And my thing with 2-point, I'm not a coach by any means, but it's like, my thing with 2-point conversions is you always want to run something where you have multiple options, where it's not just one thing or it doesn't work. And that play that's it. I just baffling.
If it's covered, it doesn't work.
And this is why I get upset with fans, because it's like, this staff just coached a team that almost beat Oklahoma on the road. I can't then go get mad about the one play that didn't work, especially since I'm not one to complain about the refs, but UCF was also just had an interception taken away for no reason in the first half. Even, it's bad when we were late in the third quarter and the announcers are like, God, that bad call that took that interception from UCF. And that's 3 points in a 2-point game because Oklahoma then made the field goal. And it should have been
I didn't think about that until I was watching the game somewhere else. I came on my way home. I was like, oh man.
Yeah,
they gave them a field goal at the end of the first half. You never know
in a game that they then won by 2. It's a totally different game from there, but it's still just frustrating in a game that was that tight. But
it's also technically a different game. I know I was poking fun at Brent Venables on getting mad at the refs for not seeing Javon blow a kiss at the sideline because
listen. If he had gotten flagged for that, that's a spot foul. That would have been bad.
No, I know.
Like, that would have been
really
bad.
But I just think it's funny that he's just so mad that, like, you didn't see it. Like, just all right. Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
why is it also? It's not like he flipped off the sideline. He blew a kiss. It was a loving gesture. I don't know what was wrong with it.
That's what I said. How do you know that? I was going to tweet that. You don't know the intent behind him blowing a kiss. You don't know if it was just him saying.
He might have seen a former high school teammate. We don't know. It was also, if I remember right, I think it was like directly to Venables. Like, it was like he happened to do it right as he was running past Venables. Like, it was just the timing was funny. But
yeah,
I don't know. I guess fans can throw fits and be mad, and I get it. UCF's 0-4 in Big 12 play, and just even saying that makes my heart constrict. But
it sucks.
I think the best word to describe how I feel right now about the season is I feel sort of revitalized. Like, I just feel like this season can still have good moments. And coming off of Kansas, I just wasn't sure of that. And
I'll give you an example of that. I was not looking forward to coming for the West Virginia game next weekend. And now I'm like, all right, I'll get back up for that game.
I think and especially if the crowd's gonna be good, I'm sure the place will be packed and loud. I think that's a game I know it's a game UCF can win, and we see if they will, but I think this is turning a corner, guys. To go from what they did against Kansas to what they did against Oklahoma, that's taking your bye week and turning a corner. Now they have to build off that, but I think they can. Our big concern was the defense and some of the offensive mistakes, and the defense has looked the best they looked all year. Whatever they fixed is working, and I think part of it is just emphasizing different guys in different roles. And JRP's back, and the offense just looks more steady when he's there. Can't believe that's a real sentence, but it's true. So I feel better about this closing stretch. I do. And then but where I'm still worried is like, what if it's just a 1 week thing? What if it is? Like, they need to build on it. Could be. But what if they don't? Like, but that's what I'm saying is we know it's not, because when you look at the 4 games, sure, they're all losses, but now we're at the point where only one of them UCF was not competitive in. They were competitive in the other 3. It's not like they're close. Like, it's like they just got to get there. So, and listen, I know the whole bottom of the Big 12 thing is bad, but all the new 4 are having terrible years. Like, this isn't a unique to UCF thing. Cincinnati also has not won a conference game. It's UCF and Cincy are both still winless, and Cincy's winless is a lot worse than UCF's, because out of conference they lost to Miami, Ohio, which I find hilarious, and in conference they haven't even been competitive. BYU's one conference win is Cincinnati, excuse me, and Houston's one conference win is West Virginia, who they beat on like just a fluky Hail Mary, and Houston is playing Texas today. I'm sure that's going to go great. So it's like, this isn't just a UCF thing; it's a tough transition.
But Cincinnati almost Baylor in this game. I didn't realize. So they scored 15 points in the fourth quarter and made it 31-29. Or no, that was UCF. 32-29. That's weird.
How
1
funny.
point difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just, this year was always going to be a struggle. I think everybody, like, there were delusions about, 10 wins, 9 wins.
Not from
whatever.
us. And I'm taking pride in that, because some people got ridiculous where, like, actual predictions of they could compete for the conference title this year.
However they get there, if they get to 6-6, that's what I asked for.
We said all offseason, get to a bowl, be the best of the new 4. Both those things are still on the table. So
I reserve the right. If they get to 6-6, I will be happy that they did what I asked for, but I reserve the right to still be mad about Baylor, because they could have been 7-5.
I'm never going to not be mad about Baylor. I'm pissed about Baylor right now. This game made me more mad about Baylor, because I'm like, wow, think of how much a better mood I would be if they hadn't blown a 35-7 lead. I'm never going to get over that game for the rest of my life. I'll be 80 and thinking about it. But it's just the season. It's just, we talked about all offseason. They're probably going to go 7-5 or 6 or 6. Things are still looking that way. And they're looking, I was worried that they weren't, but after this game, I feel like they are. So it's just hard to be in such a negative headspace. And I was just so caught off guard by how many fans are. I don't get it.
Random stat thing that I'm looking at on ESPN. Did MAR get a carry?
Yeah, I saw that. I have no recollection of that. So I think that might just be like, right. I noticed that too. I don't think that's right. Yeah,
it had to have been somebody else. It just got wrong. But yeah, there were some things that were wrong. But I don't know, I just saw that. I was looking at see if there was anything else I needed to point out. And that was the one thing that I saw where I was like,
yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think we can probably leave it there. We talked about everything that I think we needed to cover.
I think that the new gold helmets might have some sort of magical powers, because they were undefeated in them going into this game. And sure, they lost, but hey, you wear those and you almost beat Oklahoma. I think that's pretty interesting. I don't know.
Magical powers.
Just break them out. I also just love those. I also love those gold helmets, man. Like, I never even had an issue with the old ones. I always liked the old ones, but these ones just pop in a different way. They're a little shinier. They're a little glossier. Well, they're not glossy. I mean, they're the same texture and everything, but just the way I don't know, the way the sun hits them is just different, since they're that lighter gold. It feels more like a gold. I don't know. I know I'm rambling about a gold now, and that's the last thing our listeners want.
That's one of my favorite parts about the post-game podcast is, like, we get down toward the end and we're like, we talked all about the game. So like now it's like, it's literally almost a segment where it's like, we'll just talk about how the uniforms looked and then we'll get out of here.
Well, it's an interesting one to me, because if people know my uniform takes, like, I don't like tricolor combos, and I feel like that makes, like, I know a lot of fans do, and you guys are wrong. They just don't look good. But this is like the literal one UCF does that I'll like allow, because it's so on. It looks so on brand. So I'll allow it.
What was the one they did last year? Was a home game, wasn't it? Or no, was it?
What are you talking about?
Didn't they do a tricolor combo last year? That
they were
like
this throwback last year.
Oh, was it this one? Okay,
it was on the road at East Carolina, and it was with the state. It was with the state UCF decal.
Great game that was.
What a time!
Yeah,
I didn't say that because that was my immediate thought when this combo got announced. I was like, went well last time. They were worth it. Something for a road game.
Yeah. You weren't allowed to say that though, because you're one of the people who was always about, like, does not matter how they play in a uniform. It's not the uniform's fault.
You and I were talking about that, because who cares? If you're still here, we'll talk about whatever we want. You'll have to listen to it, fans. We were talking about this with the Bucks game, because they wore the creamsicle uniforms, which I love, and they lost them, and people are like, we got to get rid of the creamsicle. Yeah,
because people are like, they're 1-4, they're 1-5 all time in, like, their throwback games. I'm like, yeah, I think that's just because most of the time they're not a very good team. But
I get it though. Like fans are superstitious. Like we went through a phase in 2013 and 2014 where if we thought that if we didn't eat a Twizzler after every UCF touchdown, they would lose the game. Like it's like fans are crazy. Like it's just you're looking at me weirdly. Have I never told you that?
No, was that
in my family?
Oh
yeah, because I was still.
I don't know if it was like a UCF fan base thing. I was like, I missed this.
No, I was like 16 at the time. It was I forget how it started. It was like at a tailgate or something. One of my dad's like college roommates was like, we gotta eat Twizzlers so UCF will win the game, and we did it, and they won. And that was like early in 2013. And 2013 was the craziest UCF year ever. Where they were winning every game, but like razor thin in every game. We were like, it's because of the Twizzler. And then it got like, I forget what. Right. Okay. So then it was the South Carolina game, which they lost. We did not have Twizzlers before. And so then it was official. And I remember very specifically then in 2014, we're like in Ireland, in the stadium, like breaking out the Twizzlers, like, we need to eat more, guys. Like they're losing.
Yeah.
Like,
and then they started Pete DeNovo.
Yeah, I think one of my parents' friends for that game actually drank a beer out of a shoe because he said the Twizzlers aren't working, so let's try this. I'll have to check with my dad on that. But so I understand fans are superstitious. This is the point, but it's not.
That would have been tough for me because I don't like Twizzlers.
I don't like Twizzlers either, man. But I did it.
Wow.
I don't like Twizzlers. And if you are listening and you do like Twizzlers, that's cool because it's food. But I find them nauseating. Like I don't enjoy them. But I was like, I gotta eat this for UCF to win. Oh really?
I used to love them as a kid, and I think I like ate a lot. I won like in one sitting one time and ruined forever.
This is a fundamental philosophical divide in the country because when I want candy, I want chocolate, and some people want like fruit type candy. Like
depends on my mood.
Stuff. To me, it never does. Like, okay, you can have any candy. I don't know what we're doing. What we'll do this and we'll be done with the podcast. You can have any candy in front of you right now. Like, what do you want in your hand?
My first thought went to Skittles.
Oh, see, I don't like.
But
Skittles.
I think it's just
too like.
I love Skittles.
Yeah,
I like Skittles and Sour Patch Kids. I think those are my two like.
Oh God, you're just naming stuff I don't like.
No, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Why? Why are you sorry?
I don't know. You just like seem disappointed in me. I don't know.
No, well, I do think it's a really basic move to like Skittles. Like I think that it's just like you're like everyone else. Congrats. Try to be different.
Marshawn Lynch is basic.
I say that, sure. I say that when I was going to say my answer is like a Hershey's chocolate bar, which I think is like the most stereotypical candy item in America.
I think it probably is. Yeah. We should probably stop. I think
we could. Hey, it's like Halloween week, right? Or next week is, so we can talk about candy. That makes it okay. We'll
talk about candy again on the next podcast.
I can't wait for the Monday presser for someone to ask us what his favorite Halloween candy is and watch him just stare like a deer in the headlights and be like, "What?"
It's gonna happen. He's gonna be like, "Oh, chips with the dip."
I know that this is not how pressers go, and you could not do this and should not do this, but it would be really funny to lead with that. Like he gets up there and is like, "So obviously we just had a tough loss, but we're getting."
He just goes. He always goes questions.
Yeah,
just the first question.
Questions. First question is, Coach, what do you think about Reese's Pieces? Are you a fan or are you against them?
Yeah. No, I mean, do you remember rest in peace, Mike Leach? He was the one that would just talk about candy. Any opportunity he could get to talk about candy, he would just do it. He would go on rants about candy.
He had one of my favorite quotes ever where he said that people may not realize it, but there's still plenty of candy innovation going on in America, and started talking about like new candies that had come out in the last few years. I love that.
Oh, it was good. All right. Yeah, we'll leave it here.
If I offended any fans with my rant, I haven't listened back to it yet. So if it's over the top, I do apologize. If I listen back to it and I decide I'm okay with it, I don't apologize, but we don't know yet where I'm going to land on that. So
it's a good place to, I think that's a good way to look at it.
Don't tell players they suck after a game. What is that? I can't believe that RJ Harvey after the game, he got on Twitter and the first thing you saw was a fan saying he sucks. That really bothers me, but
also just wrong. Like what?
Right? Like he rushed for over 100 yards.
Don't tweet that at any player, but like, why is that the person that you single out? That's insane.
Do you think that the reaction would have been different? Everything happens exactly the same, except the failed 2-point conversions, just JRP like gets sacked on a pass attempt. Do you think it's the same reaction? Or was it just because it was that type of play that we're just...
I don't know. I've wondered the same thing because it's like, the whole thing was like, wow, what an effort. And then that left the bad taste in my mouth because it was like, just run a normal play.
And then on top of that, I feel like this game just had all the upset materials. It had Oklahoma missing 2 field goals. It had UCF. That Javon Baker touchdown catch was on a 4th and 10. UCF then misses the 2-point conversion on that. They almost got the onside kick. Like a UCF player had hands on it past 10 yards. So it was close, but
Yeah. Well, it was funny because on the broadcast, they were like, oh, a 2-point conversion. Like you want to run your best 2-point play. Like, is that their best 2-point play? And I was like, it cannot be, but it could be. I don't know.
There's no way.
Maybe in this playbook. I don't know.
Why can't a 2-point play just be whatever you would run when you're 3 yards away from the end zone? Why does it have to be something special?
I don't know.
You mean like why couldn't they, like, honestly, if they had just done Wild Bowser with Harvey, would anyone have complained? Probably. It worked early. They ran it once earlier in the game and it worked.
Probably would have complained.
Yeah, you're right.
Just
took
because
the ball out of JRP's hand.
There's been a lot of conversation about the Wild Bowser formation this season, so it would have been another one that would have been widely
Maybe
debated,
Oklahoma is
but
just really good at defense.
wild concept, maybe. Yeah, we'll leave it here. We will be back early next week with episode 170 of the Pegasus Podcast. Until then, you can find us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at @ByCASimmons, and at Night Sports Now. Thank you guys so much for being with us. Be nice to people. I shouldn't have to say that at the end of the podcast, but be nice to people. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for being with us.
Bye, everybody.